Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and this video is going to be a video where I give you guys a bit of my opinion on a question I keep getting all the time while live streaming. During my streams, a lot of people come by and ask me, hey Dalaran, well, you play the game a fair amount, what is the best class for me to play in patch 8.1? A more clear version of this question usually comes down to what class should I play right now, so then once patch 8.1 comes around, I am not wasting my time playing a class that's getting over-nerfed or under-tuned. I get those kind of questions actually quite often, and I do understand where everybody's coming from. Whether you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of time to play the game whatsoever, maybe school or work or life is kind of just taking up a lot of your time, but every time you want to log on to WoW, you want to make sure you're enjoying the game. Or if you're somebody with ample time to play the game, but you're just not quite sure how to invest it or which class to invest it into. Now, Battle for Azeroth patch 8.1 is coming in with a lot of cool and awesome class changes. A lot of those class changes I actually was able to test on the PTR multiple times over. You will be happy that Blizzard is doing a lot of good things with patch 8.1. First of all, you'll have a lot more achievable goals, so I feel like the expansion itself will start to feel a little bit more fulfilling. And what they're doing with the classes themselves in particular in order to, let's say, help certain specs of certain classes, because usually the whole class itself isn't bad, it's just certain specs of that class are just not that great. They're taking those specs that are not that good and are bringing them up instead of taking the specs that are already performing well and dumbing them down, which honestly in its own is like, thank you Blizzard, finally we're doing it right, because in the past they've definitely taken specs that are performing really well that should be the example of where everybody else should be at, instead are just kind of lowering the bar. So 8.1 seems like it's going to be a really good patch. A lot of the class changes I've tried, even though I don't main any of these classes, I've played them holy crap, a fair amount back in the beta, and I can see their transition from what they came out by the time it was the end days of the beta, and as to how they play now. While I'm not an expert in every single class, I do want to give my word for the rogues. Now, a quick one about rogue leveling for anybody who has never leveled a rogue before, and for someone who is even thinking about leveling it. I do want to kind of build up the hook for you guys in order to kind of see if maybe this class might be worth. Rogues, when it comes to leveling, is a class that does fairly well. I mean, you get to avoid a lot of the enemies using stealth, you have a fair amount of mobility-based abilities allowing you to get around quickly, you have a lot of awesome cooldowns and crowd control on the enemy. So it's a class where you will feel like you're in control of everything that's happening to you. I feel like rogue leveling is a fairly unique experience. It's actually a pretty quick experience whether you play Assassination, Subtlety, or Outlaw. And all those three specs offer you slightly different playstyle options when it comes to base time leveling. The mobility of the three rogue specs is one of its strongest suits, and a lot of people like being that class is maybe the fastest, or they can get around the place a lot easier than others. And this is especially seen whenever you play Outlaw and you have the big old grappling hook like across the field. It's actually kind of cool and exciting, and especially when you can utilize grappling hook in ways where you can like get up on certain buildings or ledges and climb a hill. It's really unique and gives you that versatile feeling. So whether you want to play Subtlety or Assassination with Shadow Step, with Sprint, or you want to try experimenting with Outlaw with a little bit of that 3D maneuverability, it gives the player a lot of places where you can go. That combined with stealth, it basically makes you invisible. So you can go anywhere you want, you have all these movement-based abilities, and you can avoid a lot of the combat. You can choose whether you want to fight or not, so it's kind of like this feeling of control. And speaking about control, the spec is really good with crowd control. So if you want to just stun lock an enemy, silence an enemy, interrupt, gouge, throw them into a bunch of different CC, have a bunch of enemies crowd controlled where you can just pick them off one by one, that's also another fun part about Rogue that I very much enjoyed. I will be honest with you, I feel like a lot of the rogue abilities are not really scaled to, let's say, Roll the Bones, for example. It is a huge ability that is massively part of the playstyle for Outlaw, but you don't unlock it until like level 40. So it's not quite as good of a progression when it comes to leveling as, let's say, Classic WoW, since we literally recently get to play it. I felt like in Classic WoW, the abilities and at which pace you would get them, it was well done. But here it might be all about trying to enjoy the encounters, enjoy the playstyle, and enjoy it in simple ways, because I feel like a lot of your abilities you don't really start to get and really play with up until you get much in the higher levels. Alright, it's time to get into the meat and bones of things. I think we'll first start with some of the PvE content, since chances are you guys will be enjoying some of the brand new raids and even dungeons that will be coming out with BFA patch 8.1 as well as future patches. When it comes to raiding environment, rogues have generally been pretty good. Generally people want rogues, not because we offer something new to the table, and I feel like this is where the competitiveness of the specs definitely comes in, especially in Battle for Azeroth. By competitiveness, what do I mean? I mean things like buffs. For example, you're not quite as necessary as a warrior who brings a attack power buff. You're not quite as necessary as, let's say, maybe a Windwalker. You know, if they don't have a Mist Weaver or a Brewmaster, a Windwalker attaches 5% physical damage to whatever enemy they touch. Or even a Demon Hunter, where just by grazing an enemy, they make them take 5% more magical damage. Those classes bring something that a raid has to have. So a raid will always want to have a warrior. A raid will always want to have a Demon Hunter, be it a tank or DPS, and a monk. So you already have certain spots where DPS roles could be filled for your raid. But I feel like what stands rogues apart from those classes, for example, those classes are necessary because they bring a buff to the team. It doesn't really matter if they can do that much damage. Hell, you can have Windwalker monks, Demon Hunters, and Arms Warriors / Fury Warriors just do absolutely 0 damage. People will want to take them regardless. But as a rogue, on the other hand, you actually are a class that has a lot of versatility, whether you want to play Assassination, Outlaw, or Subtlety, especially for the brand new raid. Right now, rogues have a mix of great damage, be it single target, AoE, or like focused single target in a hectic AoE cleave situation, thanks to the magic of Subtlety. When it comes to Mythic Pluses, I guess it is really more or less of the same when it comes to the raiding environment. Rogues are definitely wanted. I feel like sometimes there's certain dungeons where people will literally list, doing the certain dungeon at this certain level, need a rogue, and they will take any rogue. It doesn't matter whether you have a party full of casters, it doesn't matter whether you have a party full of melee. People love rogues in Mythic Pluses. I feel like in Mythic Plus situations we get to offer a little bit extra than what we do in a raid. In most raids we're simply just another damage dealer with a little bit of extra effectiveness and survivability for mechanics. In Mythic Pluses, however, we bring stealth as part of our utility, allowing our groups to skip certain packs. I've been doing a lot of Mythic Pluses and I actually really enjoy where the rogues are at. I love being able to hop into random LFG groups just because I have a fair amount of score, and mostly importantly because I'm a rogue, and just join some dungeons. Whether they go well or not, however, that's a whole other story. But that feeling of being wanted as just for the class that you play, it definitely has its perks. When you're playing a class that nobody really wants, or you're not, I guess, in the quote-unquote meta, it makes it a lot harder to find groups. So you really have to develop relationships and friendships, and really you should be playing the game with guildies and friends, but a lot of people like to play the game solo. So if you're a huge fan of the lone wolf playstyle, I feel like a rogue is going to be one of the better classes as it's been so far. It doesn't seem that we're losing any of our utility of the shroud or all the crowd control or the mobility or survivability that we bring into a Mythic Plus, plus all the damage that we have right now doesn't look like it's getting nerfed by patch 8.1 until as of right now. So when it comes to M pluses in the future patches, I feel like we're just going to be just as wanted as we are right now. So in a sense, that's another safety net to consider when it comes to the spec. When it comes to rogues, at least compared to how we were in Legion, I feel like we have had a little bit of a flip. We were a spec where Assassination was the one leading the competition, kind of like how it is currently, and eventually Subtlety became the better spec. Then of course you had the Underdog spec where you have some comps and it can do damage if you know how to play it well, and it can perform really well in the right comp, but on its own it just didn't feel like it had a lot of damage. If you were to take a look at where rogues are at for PvP right now, Assassination is still the spec that everybody would start playing if you're not sure which spec you would want to play, or just want to be able to deal massive amounts of damage on a rogue, doesn't matter what spec. Then Outlaw would be the second closest with a lot of CC and good damage, and then Subtlety's kind of dragging on damage, but it still is a great spec. I feel like as long as Rogue Mage combo is insane in Arena, rogues are always going to be wanted and played in PvP. But that's just Arena, so I know not everybody is want to get into that. When it comes to the actual playstyles of the specs, what I really like is Outlaw, for example, being like this duelist type of spec. The type of abilities you bring and type of CC that you can bring with your honor talents, I feel like makes the spec super unique compared to the others. Assassination is a great spec when you want to ambush the enemy, dot them up, and kind of rot multiple enemies over time. They're really amped the damage over time for Assassination, and if you're able to spread that damage to multiple enemies, be it in a battleground or in an arena, or let's say you're dueling somebody, I think it's a lot of fun and offers you that unique playstyle. And then you have Subtlety, which honestly took a huge nerf bat on damage left and right. You are very, very heavy on cheap shots and kidney shots, and when it comes to general, the amount of CC you bring to the team is insane. But the way that it feels right now on damage, some people is a kind of a give or take situation. I feel like Subtlety definitely could use a bit of improvement, because while on one hand I like being able to crowd control everybody, I don't really like just feeling like I'm a CC bot. I want to feel like there's a moment where I can just pump some big damage. I'm popping cooldowns, shadow blades, and I want to be able to know that I can take an enemy down. At most, whenever I play Subtlety, for example, I feel like I can definitely take him down to like 75% worth of health, but I might need someone else's help to finish him off. That being said, I don't think I've enjoyed my rogue in battlegrounds, arenas, duels, whatever PvP situation I might think of in quite a long while. And as somebody who is primarily an Outlaw rogue main, oh, do I love how Outlaw plays, and that's just honestly my favorite spec. A lot of people found a lot of joy playing Assassination or Outlaw. There's also a few people that have found Subtlety to be definitely to their liking. So I think it would be very, very good spec. If you want to play PvP, rogues would definitely be in one of the top charts. One of the enjoyable parts about Rogue is how good we are right now, and what I've noticed on the patch notes for patch 8.1, it doesn't look like Blizzard is trying to take too much away. They're trying to add a few Azeroth traits here and there. They're trying to change a few honor talents here and there, but it doesn't really feel like they're changing where the spec is at. If anything, I think Blizzard is using rogues, for example, as one of those classes that's a DPS class that's super fun, as kind of like a base to build up other classes too. I don't know that for sure, but I do know that we are in a really good spot, and if Blizzard wanted to nerf any class, I feel like rogues would have been nerfed quite a while ago. So with how well we've been doing and how Blizzard is actually going about taking some of the less played specs, some of the less popular specs in the game and trying to bring them up, instead of trying to nerf some of the stronger ones down, I feel like rogues are in a good spot right now. You're not going to feel like you are weaker, you're just going to feel that other classes are more competitive against you, or more competitive, I guess, to you in a way. If you guys are looking for a class that is fairly future-proof, I feel like Rogue's track record in Battle for Azeroth so far has been pretty good, and I feel like I can almost reliably say that we'll be one of the top classes even a couple patches from now. I guess we'll have to see if that is true or not in the near future, but I really do think that we are in a great spot currently, and with how little changes Blizzard is making in patch 8.1, it does look like we might be in a decent spot. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do want to make a video of some of the classes that I think would be great to start playing after patch 8.1 has begun. I think I want to take a look at all the different specs that I want to level and all the different classes I want to be playing, and try to figure out what would be great for anybody coming into the game afterwards. Kind of like a post-op video. After taking a look at where they are, after all the initial buffs and nerfs that will come in the first few weeks, just to give you guys an idea of what looks good and what looks enjoyable to play. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Is Rogue a class you're playing right now and are planning to play for 8.1? Is Rogue now a class you might even want to main now after I've told you all this for 8.1, or at least maybe alt, because I feel like Rogues would at least make a very, very good alt. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see all of you in another one.